Growing scrutiny over his actions after being given the Mueller report. As you'll recall, the Attorney General at first issued his own 4-page summary. In it, he went much further than Mueller himself and cleared the president on obstruction of justice. And we have now learned that 3 days after that summary was made public, that the special counsel, Robert Mueller, sent the Attorney General a letter indicating that he was not pleased, writing that the Barr summary, quote, did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of this office's work and conclusions. The Attorney General being asked about this in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee at this hour. He has said in testimony before the American people already this morning that 3 times in discussions with Robert Mueller before that summary was delivered by the Attorney General, 3 times, he said, Robert Mueller emphatically said that he did not decide on obstruction of justice, not because of Justice Department precedent. We didn't understand exactly what that meant, William Barr said in response to what Robert Mueller told him. But of course, that will be argued about today on the Hill as they continue to press him as to why he went ahead and made the decision himself. We do know that in the Mueller report, Robert Mueller said Congress does have the authority, which many believed was in reference to Justice Department precedent. William Barr was asked pointedly, was he surprised that Robert Mueller did not decide on obstruction of justice? And here's what he said just a short time ago. Listen to this.
So, the conclusions in your 4-page summary, you think, accurately reflect his bottom line on collusion. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you can read it for yourself if you got any doubt. As to obstruction of justice, were you surprised he was going to let you decide?
Yes, I was surprised.
So we want to bring in our team right now. Our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, has been watching this with us here on the desk in New York. And we have this letter from Robert Mueller that he sent a mere number of, 3 days after Barr's summary. And he said that this is a misrepresentation, if you will, of what the Mueller report had found. And now we hear from William Barr this morning, who right out of the gate said that Robert Mueller did not decide on obstruction of justice, not because of precedent from the Department of Justice, but that fights some of the language we saw in the Mueller report itself.
Yeah, look, if you read the Mueller report, there are 4 guiding principles at the outset of the obstruction section. And the first one is we can't indict a sitting president. The third one is we don't even think it would be appropriate to accuse the president of a crime in this report because he can't respond. And the fourth one is, but if we thought we could clear him, we would. That's what the report says. Now, with regard to this letter that Mueller wrote that seems to express frustration with William Barr, Barr responded to that and said that it was not about the letter. He said he talked to Robert Mueller, and Mueller actually said it was about the media coverage of the letter. He says that Mueller claimed that his letter and his press conference was not inaccurate, that he did not misrepresent the report. And this sort of creates a situation where Robert Mueller has to testify now, because now we have Barr saying what Mueller thought, what Mueller said to him beyond this letter. And if there was ever a question about whether Robert Mueller should testify, William Barr just answered it by saying, this is what Mueller thinks, this is what Mueller said to me, beyond the letter.
But again, remember, Robert Mueller was reacting specifically to William Barr's summary in his letter when he said that it did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of this office's work and conclusions. He was not talking about the press there in that letter. He was talking about William Barr's summary.
Correct. But what Barr is saying is, no, he was talking about the media coverage. So Barr has now created, and I have to say that the moment that Barr came out, I thought that there was a conflict between Mueller and Barr as to what to do. And I think it is now entirely clear that there is a conflict between Barr and Mueller that has to be assessed.
It certainly raises the stakes to get Robert Mueller up on Capitol Hill. There's already reporting that Mueller wants to, that the Department of Justice hasn't set a date yet for Robert Mueller's testimony. That is still being reported out. In the meantime, this was another moment with William Barr. He said that when the special counsel turned over the Mueller report, that we thought the grand jury testimony, the 6E testimony, would have been redacted right at the get-go. He said what was handed to us was not prepared in that fashion. I thought that was a bit of a dig to Robert Mueller's team.
It was a dig, but Mueller's team's response would be, that's why we created summaries. We created summaries so you could release those to the public. And it sounds like, even from Barr's testimony, that's what Mueller wanted. Mueller wanted those summaries to be released because he felt that they could more accurately characterize what was in the report. And Barr even said, I said to him, no, I don't want to release summaries. I want to just release the whole report. And the problem with that is, on the one hand, you have Barr summarizing, but unwilling to release Mueller's summaries. And so you have Barr's summary, not Mueller's summary, being released, and Barr saying, I don't want to release summaries.
You've got right in the letter from Robert Mueller that was made public last night and the full letter today. I am requesting that you provide these materials to Congress and authorize their public release at this time. And that is direct reference to those introduction and executive summaries that had been prepared ahead of time, redacted ahead of time, with the hope from Robert Mueller that they would be released immediately. And as you point out, Dan, they were not. William Barr decided not to. He instead decided to issue his own summary. He then talked to Bob Mueller on the phone, said, Bob, what's the problem here? Bob indicated again, we prepared those executive summaries, and William Barr decided to let his summary speak for the Mueller report for a matter of weeks before the public saw the unredacted version, which is why I want to bring in our senior White House correspondent, Cecilia Vega, because for weeks, William Barr's word was the final word, until we had the Mueller report itself, which allowed the president to go out there and say, I've been exonerated.
That's the big picture, the takeaway in all of this today, David. Look, the Attorney General at this moment right now is facing very serious new questions, renewed questions about his credibility. And now that we know about this letter, this confrontation that has happened between the Attorney General and Robert Mueller, this gave, just as you said, President Trump and the White House and his allies weeks to sort of set the message, to sort of set the agenda, if you will. The Attorney General really created the impression that Mueller's team found no wrongdoing. And then we later came to find out that that is not at all what the report concluded. And just as of 2 hours ago, President Trump was tweeting these words that we have heard him say so many times before: no obstruction, no collusion, complete vindication. That's been their narrative. And in many ways, it was a gift from the Attorney General. I think there are some questions right now about whether the Democrats will certainly ask them about whether this is the Attorney General acting as the Attorney General of the United States or the lawyer for President Trump.
Or the lawyer for President Trump, because remember, Bob Mueller said in his report that if we could exonerate him, we will. He did not. Senator Leahy's now asking the question of the Attorney General. Let's listen in.
That was the time to pull up.
Okay. There have been a number of leaks coming out of the Justice Department and FBI during high-profile investigations. The Inspector General found that during the department's investigation of Hillary Clinton for mishandling highly classified information, there was a culture of unauthorized media contacts. During the Russian investigation, the leaks continued. Leaks undermined the ability of investigators to investigate. Further leaks to the papers, while Congress's questions to the department go unanswered, is unacceptable.
Obviously,
Why?
Senator Leahy will be coming after Senator Grassley, who is asking right now about leaks and connections with the media from the Department of Justice. Let's listen.
The Russian investigation.
We have multiple criminal leak investigations underway.
Thank you.
Senator Leahy.
Thank you, Attorney General. I'm somewhat troubled by your testimony here and in the other body. You appeared before the House Appropriations on April 9th. You were asked about media reports that portrayed the special counsel's team as frustrated that your March 24th letter didn't adequately portray the report's findings. When the congressman, I believe it was Congressman Chris, asked if you knew what those members of the special counsel's team were concerned about, you testified in response, "No, I don't." You then said you merely suspected they would have preferred more information was released with the letter. Now we know, contrary to what you said on April 9th, that on March 27th, Robert Mueller wrote to you expressing very specific concerns that your March 24th letter, remember you're testifying on April 9th, that your March 24th letter failed to capture the, to quote Mr. Mueller, the context, nature, and substance, close quote, of his report. And what really struck me, Mr. Mueller wrote that your letter threatened to undermine a central purpose for which the department appointed the special counsel, to assure full public confidence in the outcome of the investigation. Why did you testify on April 9th that you didn't know the concerns being expressed by Mueller's team, when in fact you had heard those concerns directly from Mr. Mueller 2 weeks before?
Well, as I said, I talked directly to Bob Mueller about his letter to me and specifically asked him, what exactly are your concerns? Are you saying that the March 24th letter was misleading or inaccurate, or what? He indicated that it was not. He was not saying that, and that what he was concerned about...
That wasn't my question.
Well, I'm getting to the question, which is the question from Christ was, reports have emerged recently, press reports, that members of the special counsel's team are frustrated at some level with the limited information included in your March 24th letter, in that they don't adequately or accurately portray the report's findings. I don't know what members he's talking about. I certainly am not aware of any challenge to the accuracy of the findings.
Mr. Barr, you seem to have learned the filibuster rules even better than senators do. My question was, why did you say you were not aware of concerns when weeks before your testimony, Mr. Mueller had expressed concerns to you? I mean, that's a fairly simple...
Well, I answered a question, and the question was relating to unidentified members who were expressing frustration over the accuracy relating to findings. I don't know what that refers to at all. I talked directly to Bob Mueller, not members of his team, and even though I did not know what was being referred to, and Mueller had never told me that the expression of the findings was inaccurate, but I did then volunteer that I thought they were talking about the desire to have more information put out. But it wasn't my purpose to put out more information.
Well, Mr. Barr, I feel your answer was purposely misleading, and I think others do too. Let me ask you another one. You said the president is fully cooperating with an investigation, but his attorney had told a defendant he'd be taken care of if he didn't cooperate with the investigation. Is there a conflict in that?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat
Both
that?
Mr. Manafort and Mr. Cohen were told by Trump's personal attorney they'd be taken care of if they did not cooperate. You said that the president was fully cooperating. Is there a conflict there? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Do you think it's fully cooperating to instruct a former aide to tell the Attorney General to unrecuse himself, shut down the investigation, and declare the president did nothing wrong?
I don't think, well, obviously, since I didn't find it was obstruction, I felt that the evidence could not support an obstruction.
I'm asking if that's fully cooperating. I'm not asking whether that's obstruction. Is that fully cooperating?
Yeah, he fully cooperated.
So by instructing a former aide to tell the Attorney General to unrecuse himself, shut down the investigation, and declare the president did nothing wrong, that's fully cooperating?
Where is that in the report?
That is on Volume 2, page 5. On June 19, 2017, the president dictated a message for Lewandowski to deliver to Sessions. The message said the Sessions should publicly announce that notwithstanding his recusal from the Russia investigation, the investigation is very unfair to the president. The president did nothing wrong.
Right. Okay, so
cooperating?
Well, firstly, asking Sessions to unrecuse himself, we do not think is obstruction.
And declare the president did nothing wrong. I'm not asking you if it's obstruction. He's cooperating.
Well, I don't know if that declares the president did nothing wrong, although the president, in terms of collusion, did nothing wrong. Isn't that correct?
Well, collusion is not a crime. It's the obstructing. But is that fully cooperating to say that?
Well, I don't see any conflict between that and fully cooperating with the investigation.
The president, of course, declared many times publicly in tweets and campaign rallies and all that he would testify fully, but he never did testify, correct?
As far as I know.
Well, I think you know whether he testified or not.
As far as I know, he didn't testify.
And Mr. Mueller found the written answers to be inadequate. Is that correct?
I think he wanted additional, but he never sought it.
And the president never testified.
Well, he never pushed it.
The president never testified. Does the fact that Mr. Mueller found the Trump campaign was receptive to some of the offers of assistance from Russia, or the fact that the Trump campaign never reported any of this to the FBI, does that trouble you?
What would they report to the FBI?
That they were receptive to offers of assistance from Russia.
What do you mean by receptive? I think the report says, obviously, obviously they were expecting to benefit from whatever the Russians.
Page 173, the volume 1, the report says, in sum, the investigation established multiple links between Trump campaign officials and individuals tied to the Russian government. Those links included Russian offers of assistance to the campaign, and in some instances, the campaign was receptive to the offer, whereas others, they were not.
Well,
that doesn't bother you at all?
Well, I have to understand exactly what that refers to, what communications that referred to.
Well, you have the report. I just gave you the page for the report. And I know my time is up, and I'm making the chairman nervous.
No, just
Senator
very well
Leahy
done.
there with Attorney General William Barr up on the Hill today in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. A fairly testy moment there between Senator Leahy and the Attorney General. He pointedly asked the Attorney General about his testimony on April 9th, which we now know was several days after the Attorney General talked directly with Robert Mueller. William Barr was asked why did he tell Congress and the American people that he did not know the concerns of Robert Mueller's team. There had been reporting that several members of Robert Mueller's team were unhappy with William Barr's testimony. Why did you say you did not know if you had spoken directly with Robert Mueller? And you heard what William Barr said there in his answer to Senator Leahy. He said, well, I talked to Bob Mueller himself, not to the members that were talked about in that reporting. A very nuanced answer. And Dan Abrams, it sounded to me as though he was splitting hairs there, saying, I didn't talk to members of his team, so I didn't know why they were upset. I talked to Bob Mueller himself.
Look, it's a very lawyerly answer, right? And this is why, I don't think they're going to be able to truly kind of prove that Barr, quote unquote, lied, right? Because I think that there'll be an explanation for every one of Barr's comments about the Mueller investigation.
And he knew exactly what those questions were going to be coming at him today, asking about his testimony just several days back. I do want to bring in our senior congressional correspondent, Mary Bruce, because not only was it the exchange with Senator Christ of a couple of weeks back, there's also an exchange with Senator Von Hollen, and he said, did Bob Mueller support your conclusion? And Mary, you'll remember at the time that William Barr said, I don't know whether Bob Mueller supports my conclusion. And you talked to the senator today. He said he believes William Barr was deliberately misleading the American people.
No plan. Yeah, David, the senator tells me that he has no doubt that that was a deceptive answer from the Attorney General, that the Attorney General was misleading not just Congress, but the American people. But there is an important distinction here. Democrats that I've talked to here this morning say that they believe that the impact of Barr's comments, Barr's previous testimony was misleading. But when I ask if they think that the Attorney General outright lied or perjured himself, well, they're stopping short of going that far. David, the big picture, the view from Democrats up here on the Hill is that this letter, these new questions that have come out of the revelations about Mueller's complaints about the way that Barr handled his report, that all this does is underscore Democrats' concern that they say that the Attorney General is essentially doing the president's bidding, that he's trying to protect the president. It is why you are seeing Bill Barr be grilled so aggressively on his interactions with Mueller, on his handling of this report. And it's also why you're now seeing a growing number of Democrats here say that Bill Barr should resign and that they need to hear directly from Mueller testifying here on the Hill as soon as possible, David.
All right, Mary Bruce, right outside that hearing room. And just to sum this up for you at home, why this matters today, it is the Attorney General William Barr on Capitol Hill answering questions about the decisions he made after being given the Mueller report after that 2-year investigation. Mueller, of course, finding no collusion with the Russians between the Trump campaign, but left open the answer on obstruction of justice. William Barr then went and answered that, clearing the president. He is the Attorney General. That is his job and his prerogative to do that if he decides to do so. He'll be questioned today about whether or not that should have been handed to Congress instead, given some of the language in the Mueller report. And of course, in the 11th hour before today's testimony, that letter from Robert Mueller, now made public, sent to William Barr just days after the William Barr summary, that initial 4-page summary. Robert Mueller making it very clear he was displeased with how Barr summarized his report. We'll continue our reporting on this. If there is more major news out of this hearing, we will break back in live. In the meantime, our coverage continues live at ABC News Digital and on abcnews.com. For Dan, Cecilia, Mary, and Pierre, thanks to you all, and we'll see you later on World News Tonight. Take care.
This has been a special report from ABC News.